For starters, it means your work is a core part of your humanness. You are made in the image of a working God. God is king over the world, and you're a king, a queen, royalty, ruling on his behalf, gathering up the creation's praise and somehow pushing it back to God himself. It's from John Mark Comer in his book, Garden City. The more we're aware of our basic paradigms, maps, assumptions, and the extent to which we have been influenced by our experience, the more we can take responsibility for those paradigms, examine them, test them against reality, listen to others, and be open to their perceptions, thereby getting a larger picture and a far more objective view. Stephen Covey, his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So the quarter, this is where we begin to make changes. This is where we probably can and need to be the most strategic. This is when we decide if things need to be big or small. Ministry needs to fit the season. James Clear says, prime your environment to make the next action easy. But to prime this, we have to be aware if there's gas in the tank to prime the engine with, as well as an awareness of any previous attempts to prime it. Because no one wants to flood the engine. It doesn't work well for anyone. So what if you started setting these boundaries without using the typical calendar? You ready for that Matrix blue pill moment? Quarters are not necessarily determined by months or dates. Quarters are defined by awareness. I'm Chad Brooks, and welcome to the latest episode of Productive Pastor. What's going on, friends? We're back. The quarter. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever gotten to the point where you're so busy and you just realize, how did I get myself into this pickle? Oftentimes we think of our schedules as just chunks of time to actually get things done in, but we have so much more that runs our minds, our energies, brain, our souls than simply open calendar spots. This is the Jedi skill of understanding our schedule, strategic planning, and intentional prioritization. And we don't do this to just get more done, but we do it to get less done, but significantly more effectively and without losing ourselves in the process. So let me share what I've learned doing this on the other side of burnout and a crash season. And all of this is a result of the last few years I've been on a journey from being a workaholic to someone who is more mindful of my health and how my vocational life is affected. And I'm not here as a productivity expert, but just another pastor alongside of you in this journey. So before we jump in, just a little bit of family time, talk about some stuff on the front end of things. The first thing is this: are you part of the Productive Party yet over at the Productive Pastor community on Facebook? We've got almost 1,000 ministry leaders. Y'all, I would love to see that number hit 1,000 in the next couple of weeks. But it is a great group of folks that are rolling around the idea of productivity and learning how to do it together. I would love for you to be part of that. Second thing is this: your show notes for this episode are at revchadbrooks.com/PPP008. So I have links to suggested resources and other things, all of the stuff. And the last thing is the workbook. I've created an action-focused, hands-on resource for this whole season. It's nearly 100 pages. It's great for visual learners. It's chock full of worksheets, intentional and appreciative questions, and it's the perfect companion for anyone who wants to create a personal approach to ministry productivity. So that's it. Let's jump into the main meat of the episode, the quarter. Early on, I said, y'all, quarters are not just 3-month blips. That's the blue pill moment in the Matrix. Is quarters just lengths of time that we get to determine? So why do we think of quarters like this? Ministry is sometimes fluid, it's seasonal, and we need to be totally honest about that. One quarter might only have 2 months, or a quarter could have 4 months. What's important is to think seasonally about ministry. And taking advantage of quarters means that we can be intentional about the goals we have, the habits that we are creating, the way we are measuring things, and what we can genuinely be realistic about in life. We also have the ability to step back and say, this is going to be super, super busy. Or we can say this will be a pretty chill season. We can begin to learn the movements of rhythm in our own ministry, and we can plan around that. It helps us when we prepare sermons because seasonally different things are happening. It helps us plan around what might be busy seasons in church, like after Easter, but also what does it mean for those busy seasons in church to sit on top of busy seasons in culture? I don't know about you, but in my area, after Easter, it's all about the baseball. So this episode, it isn't necessarily about how to organize and be strategic with your quarters, although we're going to talk about that, trust me, but it's also about learning to think intentionally through your quarters. So step one, when you think about the quarters, first thing is this: you need to identify and categorize your seasons. Like I said earlier, ministry seasons aren't always fluid. You might serve in a community that is graveyard dead over the summer. And in another place, the summer is wildly busy. Or you might also be in a vocational transition from student or kid ministry to another type of ministry, and that's going to change your schedule. You might be at a church where Christmas or Advent might not be a big deal, or it could be a really, really big deal. You might be in campus ministry, and August and September are just breakneck speeds, but December and January are super chill. You've got to identify and categorize your seasons, and the important thing is to start drawing out when you know you will have an intense season of ministry. Like I said earlier, quarters aren't necessarily 3-month blocks of time, but the idea of quarters is the easiest way to think about distinct blocks of time. And this categorization thing, once you have your quarters of time lined out, then you can start asking yourself these questions. Is this quarter a time of high energy or low energy with tons of time and focused resources being expended? Is this a busy season? Think about Christmas or Holy Week for some churches. You know, some seasons of ministry aren't that intense and they have the ability to be a little slow. My current church post-Easter is a people wasteland. Travel sports have taken over, and we've got a 6-week block where folks just aren't present. That means that this normally is a fantastic time to kind of hit some administrative goals that you might set, or to redo the website, that sort of thing, because stuff is so slow, and it would be a horrible idea to be scheduling big external activities during the week. Is this quarter a time of high or low focus? Because just like energy, focus is a thing as well. Sometimes what we have going on is an incredible season of low focus or high focus. Sometimes we can have really busy seasons, but they don't require that much focus. There might be a bunch of things going on and you're not in charge. So it can be really, really busy, but it also be high focus for you personally. Or it might be wildly busy and you're absolutely in charge, but the only thing you have to do is just to kind of be there. It's a different thing. You can kind of draw out an XY axis of high focus, high energy, low energy. And once you've got those seasons of life in your ministry together, start identifying where they are. So categorize your seasons. The second step is this: begin sorting out your goals. Now, in the last episode, we talked about preferred future thinking, and we started the action steps that are part of that. I gave away the whole workbook module for episode 7 if you want to learn more about that. And part of that involved, like I said, this preferred future worksheet. It's perfect for understanding and for building out ministry and for personal dreams and family stuff, and to start creating actionable strategies to get there. So think of those goals, those things that you or your church have come up with. But you also have to start sorting out these goals through that energy focus filter as well from step 1. You know, I've been thinking lately about what it would also mean to sort out goals in a formation intention filter. Think about that on that XY axis of high formation, low formation, high intention, low intention, because that helps you begin kind of thinking where these things are. And so if you've done the work, if you've drilled down deeply into that preferred future worksheet, if you or with someone on your team is gifted in strategic thinking in that area, or maybe you've hired someone to come in and help who is gifted in strategic thinking, you can start looking at those reality columns in that preferred future worksheet of the things that you want to do. You can look at the specific action steps that were part of that sheet, and you can start categorizing those things as well. So you've got your goal, your seasons categorized in your church, your quarters categorized. You have your goals categorized, and you know what those things are going to take. Are these going to be high tension? Are these going to be high focus? Is this high formation, high energy, that sort of thing? And now you come to step 3, calendaring your work. You've identified things in your community, and you've done the work of identifying your goals. You've gone through the seasons of ministry in church, and you understand how they are different, where they require tremendous energy and resources, or where they're chill. You've also gone into your goals. You understand where that might require as well. So you're now in the space here to just start dropping them into place. It's like I said earlier, we're highly strategic. We're plotting out what might happen in the future or what could happen in the future right now. So let's talk about that. What I would suggest is a filter of, can my church/ministry handle this? If you're about to embark on a multiple facility related projects, whether new buildings or renovation, all of those things happening back to back are really tough. The hardest thing I have ever done in ministry for my energy and my focus was run a capital campaign and then build a building. It was almost 3 or 4 years of just super focused work. And it was successful on almost all fronts, but I would do it differently if I had to do it again, because the second we get out with that building, we also fell into multiple renovation projects in a row. And we actually still have renovation projects to take care of that they will take care of in the future. But it tuckered our church out. Absolutely, because we went in just these high goals, and we ran out of energy on it. So, you've got to think about, what does it look like to sort these things out? And the first couple of times you do this, it's going to be a struggle. But what you're shooting for is fitting goals and plans into seasons of ministry that respect each other. Sometimes you might have a massive goal, like a capital campaign that takes multiple steps. Some of them are small, resource-oriented, and only take a couple of people and a couple of steps. And these can be done in slow seasons, or maybe when these folks have the time, their ministry season might be slow, where other things in the church are going fast. And other times, there will be parts of it that require tremendous energy and focus from everyone, and you don't want to try to have to hit those goals in the middle of Christmas or Easter. Friends, you don't have a capital campaign during Advent. It's just going to wear you out. And what I would also suggest is this. I would think about having at least one focused formation goal a year to start off with. To take a quarter, probably one where energy is low and focus is high, and placing the same amount of intention that you might do towards an administrative or a facility-related goal toward building up a deeper and more robust faith in the congregation. And this whole thing goes really deep into the workbook. If you're in a ministry situation that needs a lot of focus, if you feel out of your depth, the workbook for this half of the season is really practical, and it's a cheap way to get the leadership clarity through just some simple and focused action. Now, this has been a pretty quick episode. Now, the quarter kind of hits it and goes straight into it. But to close things out, a few suggestions. Number one, remember that formation and worship matters. If you're not thinking about the spiritual focuses and planning for them as part of things, this is just going to turn into the church industrial complex, and nobody likes the church industrial complex. One of the quickest ways to just flame out is to forget the fact that the church is the body of Christ, and at its core, it's about worship, presence, mission, and being with Jesus. The second thing, make sure to give yourself some Sabbath quarters as well. Don't try to be a knucklehead and hit goals during Christmas. If things are so busy that you can't imagine not having to do that, the solution is not to work harder, but to plan better. And that's what this is about. Remember, we'll talk about in the episode on the year, that's about planning, and all the way down at the bottom is about doing. The year is all about planning. We're 25% down the line right now. We got a little bit of doing, a little bit of planning. We're being strategic for the future right now. And the third thing is this, stick to one project a quarter, one goal a quarter. If you or your church has never been strategic like this, just do 2 a year to start off with. Let the thinking begin to filter into the smaller things, but take this slow. Remember what I talked about in the last episode. Strategy is a resource that does not cost money, but it costs time. So what I want to close out with is a couple of suggested resources that I found to be very, very helpful and influential inside of this, just to kind of keep your mind working and stuff. First one is this. It's an article on Medium. It's about organizing your to-dos, not by project, but by mental state. This is an article about personal stuff, but you can take so many of the things that you learn in this article and expand it to this idea of strategically planning these sorts of things around the ministry year where you have the margin to do it because you don't want to run out of margin. Second thing is this, Carl Pauline, he's a productivity guru. He's old school. I love him. He has a great article about why when you don't do the back end work, you're going to struggle. And friends, the quarter is the back end work. This is the back end work that just changes everything. So I'm Chad Brooks. It's awesome having you here as Productive Pastor. Come hang out with us on Facebook. And if you want to get any of the links to this stuff, you can at revchadbrooks.com/PPP/008. And I will be back with you next week in our next episode, The Month.